Floyd Rose or floating trems are great, but can be a pain to maintain. Probably the most common headache is tuning because you have to do it so often and for when you have to tune back up when you change strings. I'm going to show you a way to tune a Floyd that should alleviate some of those headaches. Typically, when tuning a guitar, you tune one string at a time, double check the tuning at the end, and you're done. But with a Floyd, because you have the spring tension pulling on the strings, when you tighten one string, it affects the others. Increasing the pitch of one string will decrease the pitch of the others, and vice versa. So if you try to tune each string up to one pitch after the other, the first string you tune will be way out of tune. Now, if you are just doing some fine tuning, you should be okay tuning your guitar normally. But if it's way out of tune or you just change strings, you want to try out this back and forth method. Obviously, the closer you are to your final tuning, the easier this process will be. You may want to do a round or two of normal tuning to get the strings close to pitch. If you can get your strings to within a half a step or a whole step of final tuning, it'll make it a bit easier. I prefer my strings slightly flat. Of course, you can start this method from completely loose if you want. It'll just take quite a bit longer. If your guitar is so out of tune that your bridge isn't close to where it needs to be, which is usually level with the body in most cases, if you're already there, feel free to skip to this timestamp. What I like to do is place something under the bridge to keep it close to level. I use a AA or AAA battery wrapped in electrical tape. You could also use something like a small block. You'll notice I set the bridge slightly lower than level. You want to make sure to start here rather than higher because your strings will end up being too sharp once you take that battery or block out. If you use a round battery, make sure it sits under the bent pieces on the trem so it doesn't fall into the cavity. You could alternatively use the trem bar to hold the trem close to level, but that might be tough. From there, tune your strings up until the battery or block has to no longer support the bridge. Take out that battery or block and make sure your strings aren't sharp. If they are, and your bridge is angled below the guitar body, you'll need to reduce your string tension. Also keep in mind during this process that if the bridge is angled above the guitar body, you should add some spring tension. I won't be covering that in this video, but let me know if you're interested in a spring adjustment video. Now let's start tuning the sucker up. First, tune your first string to pitch. I start with the low E and work my way from low to high. Feel free to tune in whatever order you like. Once your string is tuned, doesn't have to be perfect, tune your next string, the A in my case. This will most likely cause your first string to detune. Now go back and forth between your first two strings and get those tuned pretty close. Once you have those tuned, tune up your third string. This will cause your first two strings to detune. Now we pretty much have to start over. Tune string 1, then string 2, go back and forth between those two like you did before, then tune the third. Then go back to 1 and 2, you get the idea. Eventually you'll have 3 strings in tune. Now that was probably the hardest part of tuning the guitar. Every time you go to the next string, the easier it will be to tune. This is because as you increase the overall string tension towards its end value, the overall difference in additional string tension is much smaller percentage of the current string tension. Don't know if that makes any sense, but trust me, it's legit. You can probably guess what's next. Tune up that 4th string, then start all over. Eventually, you'll have 4 strings in tune. You do the same thing for string 5 and 6. This method is pretty methodical, but I guarantee it will be less frustrating than tuning 1 to 6, 1 to 6, 1 to 6 over and over until you're ready to throw your guitar through a window. And that's how I tune my Floyd Rose guitars. Hopefully this video helped you out. If it did, hit that thumbs up button down there below. Really helps me out a lot. And if you want to hear more about what I'm working on, like gear reviews, tips, tricks, techniques, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you're notified whenever I release a new video. But hey, until next time, rock on.